Tom, recently you've become quite famous for being very knowledgeable in our quiz shows.
Right, okay.
Our viewers are fascinated by the amount of unnecessary knowledge one can have. Some people wonder, what do you think is your blind spot for football knowledge?
I'm probably better at domestic football than I am international football. So if you give me 10 questions about the Premier League or 10 questions about the World Cup, I'd probably do better with my Premier League questions.
You certainly know Man City the best. Now, already a lot of football conversations are about the summer transfer window. And today, you're going to rate the Man City first team squad. And the score you've given does not only represent how good you think these players are, but also how much you think they should stay or leave the club. Let's start with the goalkeeper, Ederson.
10 out of 10. As far as goalkeepers go in the world, there's no goalkeeper that suits City's style of football like Ederson does. I can't see him leaving City.
Let's have a look at the centre-backs. I think I know your answer for this one. Ruben Diaz.
10 out of 10. Absolutely sensational footballer. If it's a game that Pep needs a result from, you know that Ruben Diaz is going to be on the team sheet. And the way that he's improved the abilities of those around him. You look at John Stones' form since Ruben Diaz has come to City. You can just see that players feel a lot more confident with Ruben Diaz next to them.
Aymeric Laporte.
He's a difficult one, Laporte. I'd put him at a sort of a 7. No questioning his quality. But whether or not he'll be at City long term, I'm not 100% sure.
John Stones.
I just love John Stones. I think he's one of my favourite footballers. And I thought he'd go in the summer. And if he had gone, I would have been upset to see him go. As a personality, he seems like a really likeable guy off the field, but I wouldn't have lost any sleep about him leaving. I'd put him probably at an 8 out of 10.
Nathan Ake.
It's a really hard one to rate because we've not seen enough of him. But on that basis and what we have seen of him, I think he started when we got beat 5-2 by Leicester, and he's not putting any performances to suggest that he's a really integral part of the squad. Maybe a 5 out of 10.
Eric Garcia.
Well, it's easy to say a 0 out of 10 because we know that he's going to leave the club at the end of the season. Maybe a 3-4 out of 10.
Let's look at the fullbacks. Benjamin Mendy.
Oh, he is the most frustrating footballer that I've seen at City in a very, very long time. His attacking talent, he's good going forward. He's not great defensively though, in my opinion. And at the same time, he's so injury prone that we can't afford to have him as our first choice left back on the basis that his form is so inconsistent. I'd probably give him maybe a 4, 5 out of 10 tops.
Next one, I can't pronounce his name. Zinchenko.
He never sort of lights up any game. He's never the best player on the pitch, but he's just very consistent when he does play. I wouldn't say he's irreplaceable, but I do really like him. I'd give him probably maybe a 6 out of 10.
How about João Cancelo?
Oh, if you'd asked me this 12 months ago, I'd give you about a 3 out of 10. But if we're speaking about him now, he's an 8 or a 9 out of 10 easily.
How about Kyle Walker?
Again, I really like Kyle Walker, and when he plays well. But he's not as important as he was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Maybe a 6 or 7 out of 10.
Let's move on to the midfielders. Rodri.
He's a very important player. I'd say an 8 out of 10 for Rodri.
Fernandinho.
He's so important to Manchester City, Fernandinho. I'd say obviously his quality is not what it was, I'd say 5 years ago, 3 years ago, but he's so important. So again, I'd put him sort of at a 7 or 8 out of 10.
Next up, the star of the show at the moment, Ilkay Gundogan.
I've never been a massive fan of Ilkay Gundogan. On current quality and current importance, he's, like I say, he's up there with Cancelo, with Ederson. So you've got to give him an 8 or a 9 out of 10, just for that reason alone.
Kevin De Bruyne.
He's not been as good this season as we've seen of him sort of last season and the season before, or certainly not in recent weeks or since he's come back from injury anyway. But he is, for me, still the best midfielder in the world. I don't think there's anyone else who can do what Kevin De Bruyne does as consistently as Kevin De Bruyne does it. I can't give him anything other than a 9 or a 10 out of 10.
Bernardo Silva.
I'd probably give him a 7 or 8 out of 10, just because he is such a workhorse. And he's not just a workhorse. He obviously has a lot of technical ability and quality as well. We've seen from him what he can do with the ball at his feet.
Foden.
A 10 out of 10, without a doubt. If you ask any Manchester City fan, do they want to succeed at City? I want to say in 15 years' time that I've seen Phil Foden captain City to the Champions League.
Let's move on to the forwards. Now, I'm curious about this next one now. Raheem Sterling.
He is probably the hardest player to rate out of every single player at the club. He is such a good footballer when he's on form, but he can also... He's so inconsistent at times as well. Put it this way, if Real Madrid came to City tomorrow and said, we'll give you 100 million quid for Raheem Sterling, I don't know if we'd turn that offer down. All things of that considered, I don't think you can score him sort of higher than a 7 out of 10 in terms of his overall importance and quality at Manchester City.
How about Ferran Torres?
I think I'd put him at sort of a 7 out of 10.
Riyad Mahrez.
I can't put him past a sort of a 6 out of 10 in terms of his everything considered, because again, if Mahrez left the club, I think we could replace him quite easily.
Gabrielle Jesus.
Again, another very frustrating player. For me personally, I'm not his biggest fan, and I wouldn't be overly upset if he left. But if we're talking how Manchester City value these players, Jesus is one of the most valued players at the club, and you can see why. You can see why Pep really rates him. For me, I think he's a 7 out of 10.
Last player we're going to talk about is Sergio Aguero.
I hate talking about Aguero because every day that goes past, I'm less and less confident that we're going to see Aguero at Manchester City next season. No City fan would want Aguero to leave, but from a City's perspective, he's not fit, or he hasn't been fit. He hasn't sort of hit any sort of form over the last 12 months. So with that in mind, again, I can't put him anywhere past a 5 or a 6 out of 10.
Okay. Now, we've gone through all the players. If I remember correctly, you haven't mentioned anyone that you thought should leave the club.
Yeah.
I did this with the Spurs fan, Chris, the other day. He wanted 7 players to go. So, I mean, that just shows, how much it takes to build a title-winning squad.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Nice chatting to you, Kev. And yeah, I'll catch up with you soon.
Cheers.